Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Well, I have a question for you. How many of you absolutely love dolls? I do. I have since I was very, very young. I always had quite a few baby dolls and Barbie dolls, and I just love dolls. So I have made dolls in the past, and I am making some now a little bit different. This is kind of the Tilda style, but much smaller. Let me show you my Tilda doll that I made. See, she's so big, I don't know if I can even get her all in the screen. There's her legs and her clothes. And she is just precious, but she's so big. And I mean, I love it. I don't dislike it. Look at her little, oh, I'm sorry, let me show you. Her little hair and her hat. And she's got on these little overalls that crisscross in the back. And she, like Tilda's, they have long skinny necks, arms and legs, and wide hips. So she's got some hips. And I just kind of sit her in my craft room because I like to see her. I think she's precious. And she didn't have any shoes on that pattern, but I'm going to make her some shoes. But not today. Today, I want to show you, see, this is the same thing, basically, but I did these, I took that pattern and I reduced it smaller and printed it out. So I've got two of them stuffed, and I'm working on a third one. So I've got the legs are stuffed, the arms are stuffed, and I stuff it as tight and hard as I can. And I wanted to show you a little trick that I learned about stuffing these little teeny tiny pieces like the hands and the feet. They make a tool called a turning tube, but that's not what this is. This is a wind chime. Both of these, I got two different sizes here, wind chimes, and they're just aluminum chimes I had bought in a bag like this. I was going to make some wind chimes. I was going to fix some wind chimes, and I don't think I ever did anything with them. But anyway, they are hollow, and they work just like a turning tube. So when you're turning your piece, which I've already turned mine all right side out, and I wished I had shown you before I did that. But when your piece is wrong side out, you stick a tube in there, then you take a smaller tube and you go down in the middle and you just turn that thing right side out, just like that. And it works very, very well. I'm amazed how well it works. So I also, when I'm doing the big one, I can use this bigger tube. Like this one works pretty good for that. But when I do the legs and the arms, I have to use this tiny tube. So my husband went out to his shop and he brought me back some welding rods. And the welding rod fits nicely down in there. And that's how I turn these little bitty pieces right side out. Because if not, you'd be there forever. This works in 30 seconds or less. It's great. So anyway, I'm at the stuffing process. So I have stuffed the arms and the legs of this last doll. And so now I'm working on the body. And I found that this small rod that I was using for turning is great for stuffing. It's worked really, really good. I guess the end of it kind of grabs hold of the stuffing, but yet it doesn't rip my fabric. Now, bear in mind, I did stitch all of my seams with a 1.5 size stitch, which is very, very tight. They're very small and very tight stitches. So I just wanted to share this with you and show you how I put my little dolls together. So, but yeah, I love using these little tubes that are flat on the end because they're just so easy for stuffing. And I know they make all kinds of stuffing tools and all, and I was going to go buy some, and I'm like, why should I? This works really, really well. Okay, so I am, till I get past the little neck, I always just kind of do very tiny, and this is just polyfill, polyester stuffing. That's all it is. So I'm just going to do tiny amounts until I get past that neck. And I want to get the neck really good and tight because you don't want her head falling over, you know, leaning forward or backwards. I think I'm going to go one more time with just a small amount. So I'm going to finish stuffing her, and then I'll be back. Okay, now I have got her stuffed in there just about as tight as I can get it. I'm leaving myself a little room right here for my next step. Now, everybody has their own way of doing it, and I'm sure there is no right or wrong, but what I have found out works for me, and I want to get that up just, well, that's not going to work, is to turn this, you know, you can stitch the legs on like this. A lot of people do, and then you turn it that way and you flip it over, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great way to do it. But what's working for me is to take this little edge here and just turn it under about 1/8 of an inch with a needle and thread. So I can't quite get that on the machine because I don't have a real tiny foot on my machine. It would probably help if I did. So I just, and this is just like a basting stitch. So we're just going to do a large basting stitch, but it's going to turn this under about, I don't know, 1/8 to 3/8 of an inch. Doesn't really matter. I gave myself a little extra on the pattern to allow me to do this. So as you can see, I'm just doing big running stitches or basting stitches. So I'm going to stitch that all the way around. Now that's going to be one less thing I'm going to have to fight with to try to get my legs in there. Now if you do the other way where you sew the legs down and then you flip it over, you can actually do them like this. That's what I did on this one. I sewed the legs to the front side like this, you know, I sewed the seam here and then flip it over, and then I turned that under and just whipped that by hand. And that's good if you want your doll to sit, because see, that gives it a bend right there where you could actually make her sit. This one I didn't do that way because I want her to stand. My thought is to make a beautiful, big, flowing, vintage looking dress. So I would want her standing for that. So I wanted her to be stiff. This one's going to be the same way. I want her to be a standing doll. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stick these legs in there, and I'm going to stitch this together one side at a time. So let me get my needle back, and I'm going to do it with a single thread because it seems like when I do double threads, it wants to knot, and this is really good thread, so I don't know why it's knotting or wanting to knot up. So I just do a single strand of thread at a time, but I go around twice to make sure that it is tacked in there good. Now, if you want to, you can also slip stitch, not slip stitch, do a basting stitch there if you want to. All right, now where that seam is on the side of her body, I'm going to line up this seam on the side of her leg, and that's where I want to start. Right there. So it's a little fiddly to begin with. So I'm going to start underneath because I want to bury my knot up under there. And then I make sure I get a piece of the leg and a piece of the body. All right. Then I go, and this is really just a ladder stitch, a piece of the leg and a piece of the body. When you ladder stitch, wherever your stitch comes out, you go directly down, or up, straight across from that, and then you go over just a very, very tiny stitch, and that gives you these little straight stitches that are pretty small. Mine are not the neatest in the world. You could even do them smaller and hide that even more. Now see, I'm just tucking that little end under there that was trying to come out a little bit. All right, so I'm going to stitch this all the way around. Okay, now two things to note. I haven't gone all the way around yet. I just wanted to stop and show you something. When I put the second leg in, it's really fiddly. I mean, it's kind of hard to hold it all together. So I just took a long pin and I lined my seams up and I stuck that pin, I'm sorry, can't even show you, can I? I stuck that pin all the way through with those seams lined up, and that just kind of helps hold it in place. And don't worry if your first row of stitching is not real great or real wonderful, because we're going to go around it again. So it will all be secure when you're done with it. And as it tries to come, turn back around the wrong way, the way I don't want it, I just keep kind of poking it with my knife, listen to me, poking it with my needle, not my knife. And I just keep going around like that. Okay, so now here we are on the back side, and I'm just kind of folding that edge back under and picking that leg back up, because it's a little fiddly. I'm not gonna say that it's not, but if you like detail work, if you like miniatures and detail work, you'll have a great time making these, because I do like them. Now this pattern I found off of Pinterest, but you can make up your own pattern. It does not have to be any. I'm going to go ahead and take that out now because I think it's secure enough. Yeah, you can make your dolls tall and skinny, short and fat. You can you can make them any way you want them. And I don't know, the next ones I do may be totally different. I do like to experiment and just kind of do something different, make each one different. I don't want no two exactly alike. So I'm going to finish sewing that around. Okay, so I've got that sewn, and I've knotted my thread. I went around twice with it, and I just wanted to show you, after you knot your thread, go right back down really, really close to your knot and just come out somewhere, anywhere. Just come out somewhere else in your project. And look, I got a knot. And I'm using a single thread. It usually does that when I do a double thread. Okay, there it is. So come out in another location in your project and pull just slightly, and when you cut it, that end goes back in there. And so now your little end is tucked in. All right, don't lose the needle. All right, so now all I've got to do is sew the arm zone, and that's the part. Oh no, I got to take these basting stitches out, and then I'm going to sew the arm zone, and that's the hard part for me. That's the part I don't enjoy, because it is so fiddly and so hard to keep that exactly where you want it to be, to keep it all lined up like it's supposed to be. So, but I'm going to show you how I do it. If I can get all those out. I didn't tack it but once, so they shouldn't be hard to come out. I'll show you how I do it, and if you've got an easier way, please leave it in the comments below, because this, like I said, this is the part I don't really enjoy. All right, now I'm just going to take my little rod and make sure that stuffing is up in there really good. All right, so what I do is I figure out where I want it, where I want her shoulder to be, line up those seams again. It's about where I want it. And I take a pin and I go straight through the entire doll. See, it's a long pin. It comes out on the other end. And that just kind of holds it in place, that while I can look at it and see, is that where I want it to be? And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stitch around that edge. Now, on these arms, I've already turned it under like a 1/16 of an inch and stitched just a little basting stitch around it, so I don't have any raw edges that I have to work with. That'll make it easier. So I'm going to stitch the arm zone, and I'll be right back. Okay, done. So there we are. I've got 3 cute little dolls ready to be dressed. And you know, I'd thought about buying some pre-made dolls, and I found out they are very expensive. They're like $5 a piece for just a blank like that. And I'm like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. So it's a little bit of trouble, but it's so much fun and so rewarding. So this is part 1. Part 2, we're going to start working on her clothes. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.